Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grow IT podcast. Today I'm lucky to have my buddy Blake Johnston, who I think I'm just going to give you, I'm not even going to intro you other than to say, if you think cold calling is dead, I think Blake's going to convince us that it in fact isn't. And I'm going to kick it off with that. So why don't you give us a quick intro, Blake?
Yeah, I'm the founder of a company called OutboundView. We've been in business for 7 years. Our main focus is cold calling, but we also do other types of lead generation. But cold calling is really our bread and butter. We're a team of about 25 people, and we help anywhere from companies selling really sophisticated SaaS platforms with really long sales cycle to people selling to restaurants. So if they pick up the phone or their end buyer picks up the phone, there's potential that cold calling can be a fit.
So let's talk through that because, I think there's a lot of people. I think things in marketing and sales kind of go through different waves, right? And we've been talking before here today, just like different webinars, different things that used to be popular way back when and fell out of favor, or just I don't even know about that. They just kind of things go in waves, right? So,
Yep.
with obviously the advance of technology and SMS and email and all the tools that are now available, to spam every single business out there in terms of email. Um, you hear people say, "Hey, cold calling's dead. Like that's just done. No one does it anymore." But I would bet that you would argue that it's actually quite the contrary. That everyone's kind of relied now on those technological tools, and that it actually is easier than ever, maybe, to get someone on a call.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of different things happening when it comes to cold calling. Cold calling is way more difficult than pushing send and an email going out to 1,000 people. And so everyone relies on those types of things. But similar to what you guys do, it's really tough to build a really good funnel, right? So a lot of people don't do it and they just email. But it's becoming so easy to email and so easy to do LinkedIn automation that, cold calling's definitely had a resurgence. There's a couple other things like everybody has a cell phone now, data providers have better data. And so cold calling will work if you have the processes to do it and you have the data to do it and you're diligent. Like I think the big mistake most people make is they go tell their salespeople, hey, go make 20 cold calls. But like the math doesn't math there, right? You have like for every 100 calls you make, you have 7 to 10 conversations. You need 20 conversations to book a meeting, somewhere between 10 to 20. So it's like if you're doing 20 calls a day, you're going to book a meeting every 2 or 3 weeks, which is a waste of everybody's time. So usually it comes down to like, if you have the processes in the system and are willing to do it right, it will absolutely work.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, right? Like all of a sudden, maybe pipeline starts dry up, and everyone's like, "Hey, go out and cold call," right? And salespeople. I'm going to put myself in that category just for a while. We're a different breed, right? We're like we had
Yep.
things we like and things we don't like, and it's funny because like even my first job out of college was in sales, inside sales, but we were taking like inbound calls, which
Hmm.
I was like, "Hey, that's great," and establishing rapport and building relationships. That's easy. And then I got my first promotion. It was like a year and a half after I'd been there. And my boss came, I'll never forget. I was sitting at my new desk. I was like, wow, this is great. I got a new desk. This is fantastic. He came over and he was like, all right, I got your client list for you. I was like, oh, great. And he had just printed out like all of these old customers that we had and just dropped it on my desk. And he's like, there's got to be some diamonds in there. Go find them. And I was like, oh crap, I have to like basically essentially cold call, right?
Yep.
And I wasn't that's probably the thing I like the least in sales. No, it definitely is. And and I found a way to make it work. I basically was able to kind of reach out to these clients and basically, hey, and you've been a customer in the past, just trying to update our files, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden we kind of go into mini discovery. But with that said, I think it's just like anything. You have to have a methodical, you have to have a kind of a process in place. It's not just something you can kind of dip your toe in the water in and out, right? So I guess that would
Yep.
be my question to you is, what is kind of the best approach if you're going to make, cold calling a part of your sales process?
Yep. A lot of it are, like I said, some of the things that you teach. So, let's say you are going to cold call. There are some just if you're going to do it at scale, you have to have a dialer and you have to have good data sources. Like at a minimum, that's it. Like you can't buy cheap data. The most expensive data is phone and mobile data. And so you have to have those two things. Doing one-off dialing is, 5 to 10 times slower than using a dialer. And by dialer, I mean like I hang up, it calls the next person. Like I'm just there and I'm in for a calling session. So like those are some of the just things that you have to have. But then, like I mentioned, I've heard you talk a lot about offers. Like you can't call somebody up that you don't know and say, hey, I have some great information. Do you want to meet next week and talk about it? They're like, who is this? Who cares? So like when you're calling with a strong offer and you have a reason for somebody to jump on a call with you with somebody that they don't know who reached out to them out of the blue, like that makes it easier. And so there are other little things like pace and tone, doing certain things in openers in the end that get more sophisticated. But at the end of the day, if you have good data, a dialer, and a good offer, even your most average cold caller will get results doing that. But those things aren't easy. Creating the offer is easy, but the rest of it is pretty expensive and can get pretty sophisticated.
Well, if creating the offer is easy, I think I may need to come help some of our clients because that's one of the hardest things we go through with them. And in fact, that's actually what I was going to ask you next, which is like, hey, can you, why don't you tell us about your offer, right? Tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, the good thing about cold calling is much more than email and a lot of other platforms. It's really a math equation, and it's pretty simple. It's this many dials to a certain title equal this many conversations, and this many conversations equal this many meetings. And so we're just trying to dial in that math equation. So what we do is a 2-week trial offer. We charge $2,000 and basically say, look, in a week, we'll come in, we'll build all your data, we'll build your scripts, we'll build your offers, we'll execute it for 2 weeks. And does that equal 4 meetings or does that equal 10 meetings? Like it's all over the board. We have a pretty good sense going in for how difficult some of these are going to be. But basically, if as long as our client has a lifetime value that's long enough or expensive enough, and we can prove out that math equation, then our team is just off and operating for them after the 2-week trial. So we do trials to prove it out because it's the easiest way to know if we want them as a long-term client and for them to know, like, am I going to get any results with good data, good dialers, everything else.
Yeah, to me that's a great offer, and that's what we're seeing so much on the marketplace right now. At least with successful offers, and even ours is a 60-day, right? And being a 2-week, it's just like it completely from at least from my viewpoint. Like I'm viewing yours, I'm like that's a great offer, right? Because it's like okay, my downside's 2,000, and it's pretty much de-risked in a 2-week standpoint. I'm only going to use 2 weeks of my time and resources. I know my capital investment. And I'm willing to give that a shot. That's a good offer to me.
Yeah, because coming out of it, there are a couple options. Like, let's say it works really well.
Right.
Well, like our team can keep calling for you. Great, you can pay us a monthly fee to do that, or we can help you build it internally. But if let's say you're, CEO of small company and your thing is you want to build a cold calling infrastructure, well, by the time you hire somebody, buy the data sources, buy the dialers, like we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars quite easily, and over a year, like more than 100,000 most likely. So we give you a sense of if it's a good idea or not, and that's kind of why we do the trial the way we do it.
What was I going to ask you? So what happens during that 2 weeks? So if you guys are doing the cold calling, do you do like warm transfers, and warm transfers, right? Or like like you have someone that's your client is on standby so that if you've got someone that meets the parameters and whatnot, and you've had the kind of like a call setting type of experience with them, that you kind of would do this warm transfer or live transfer. I don't know what they call it now.
Yeah, we don't do live transfers. What we do is try and book a 30-minute Zoom meeting within 3 days. So if we're talking with a prospect, we go through, they're interested, we want to put that meeting on our client's calendar within 3 days, ideally. So we just set up Zooms for them. They give us a Calendly. when we're kicking off, they're giving us all their customers so that we can take them out of their do not contact or put them in a do not contact list when we're building lists. But no, we're usually just setting up 30-minute Zooms for them to kind of run through their normal pitch.
And then how do you guys track like show rates and things for the ones that you set? So tell me about the
Yeah,
metrics that you guys track, not only internally to
yep.
deem your own success, but obviously the success on the client side too.
Yep. So the big ones for the client are number of conversations it takes to get a meeting. And then we have some metrics that lead to that, like the number of connects that we have to get a conversation. And so the big one for the client is, hey, it's taking us 15 conversations to get a meeting. Well, we know in a month we're going to do this many dials, which equals this many conversations. So like that math equation gets really, really specific, at the end of the 2-week trial. And then there's also metrics that are really important for them. You mentioned show rate. So we typically somewhere we see between 10 to 20% no show rate or reschedule rate. So, that rate's important. And then where there's a little bit of coaching that we do with our clients is what they really need is first calls to turn into second calls. So at least 30% of your first calls should turn into second calls. And if they aren't, most likely they're not driving it somewhere, during that first call, or there's something going on with their sales process. So
let's stay on that.
Big one.
I want you to stay on that. So what is it? What is some of the mistakes or some of the gaps that you see in that process? Because we've experienced that,
yeah.
In the past and even in the present too, because obviously we're running ads for, our B2B IT and tech firms, but we've seen kind of the same thing, which is like, if we don't give them a clearly defined path in terms of almost more importantly, an exit, which is like, hey, at the end of that call, here is going to be your offer for that second call. We almost look at them as like a stage of different sales calls. You have to keep making an offer, right? So you have an initial offer, but then after you get them on the, let's call it an intro Q&A call with your initial offer, well, you have to have another offer at the end of that call to get them scheduled for the second meeting, whatever that is, right? So I'm curious what
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So 1 out of 50 clients that we start working with have that second offer defined. Like they know where they're driving people, and most don't have a first offer either.
Right.
The other things there's a couple other things that affect it. When you're cold calling or cold emailing, you're catching somebody at a time that they're interested, and then they're not doing anything until you meet with them. And so any education that you can do, a 2-minute video, the communication touch points, what can you get them to watch before they get into that first call is so critical, because then you don't spend the first 10 minutes of the first call just like, okay, what do you guys do? What are we here for? So if there's a hard offer there of why they're there, you're going to accomplish that. Frequently asked questions, like all those things should hopefully be buttoned up before they get there on the first call. And then once they're on that first call, you mentioned it. At the beginning of the call, we recommend referencing whatever that second offer is. So, hey, if this goes well, our next step is this. And at the end of the call, you have to close with that. And then there's a couple other things, just once again, communication touch points. Like the most common things we see is our clients think they're just incredible salespeople and they can discover their way into anything. So they get on, they ask a bunch of questions for 20 minutes. They tell them the 100 things they do. I'm salesperson. Oh, I had an amazing call. And then I don't understand why that person ghosts me from that point on. It's like, there was nothing specific. There was no offer. There was no second offer. There was no second call booked. Like it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are if you don't have those things. So that's a lot of the coaching that we do specifically, because if our clients can't turn first calls into second calls and second calls into revenue, like doesn't matter how great the title is that they're speaking with, like they're not going to be clients very long.
Yeah, and what we've even found is that just a clarity and understanding what that second meeting is about or the third meeting is about, and I like to call it kind of overlap, right? So you have kind of overlap from whatever your offer is to get them on the first call, and then there needs to be overlap between the end of that first call and the second call. And by that, I mean like a lot of that is at the end of that first call is telling them what's coming in that second call. Like what
Yep.
literally what's going to happen in that second call, and not only what's going to happen at the start of that second call, but what's going to happen at the end of that second call. And then when you get to the
Yep.
second call, you're restating basically what's going to happen in this call and then what's going to happen in the next call if they decide to move forward. So it's almost like some forward pacing to where it's like, hey, at the end of this call, if you decide to go forward, so they understand what's coming. So I always tell my guys, like, just keep telling them in advance. Like a lot of times prospects, when they lose interest in the process or just ghost, is because they're just
Yeah.
not clear. There's no clarity and like, where are we going with this? Right.
Exactly. Yep. And we recommend the same thing during the first call. Like these are people who may have been interested during a 3-minute call or they responded to an email. Like they have no idea what your sales process is or where you're going or what they're going to get out of it. And so at the beginning of every call, we recommend that they restate, hey, here's where we are. Typically, if this seems interesting, our next step is this. And kind of drive them to very specific places, and also makes the salesperson's job way easier. They don't have to figure out when they need to close. Like, build what your first call sales process is, and at the end, it should be confirming what you talked about up front. Oh, it seems like there might be a fit here. Should we set up our whiteboard session, or should we set up whatever that second call is?
You mentioned earlier about some things that you can kind of do before that first call, some kind of key successes, right? Whether it's a 2-minute
Yep.
video or maybe even like I'm jumping, maybe it's like a Loom type of thing. We do that. Our sales guys will send it before that first meeting just to kind of put a face to a name sort of thing and kind of try to
Yep.
build a little bit of rapport before there. What are some other tips that you can suggest in terms of that?
Yep. So always connect with the person on LinkedIn. Like immediately once the meeting is set, connect with them. Hey, looking forward to our call next week. They can do, a face. It does help to message people on different channels. You'll find that you email somebody and they don't respond. You send them a video message on LinkedIn and they do respond. So like that's number one. There are agendas. Like we don't see our clients sending agendas very often of here's what we're going to cover and why. I think you just kind of referenced this. Our salespeople will do a video the morning of and text it over, right? Like, hey, face the name, looking forward to our call this afternoon. Here's what we're going to cover. The truth is it's really hard to get prospects to do anything.
Yeah.
You can send 5-minute looms and then you look and see, and 25% are looking at them. And so it's like every little thing. But you'll notice that, at least in our world, the people that are watching it beforehand are the ones that are closing. And the people who aren't and are giving you no time, they're the people that are not closing. So, how much of a need there and how much they're really trying to solve the problem has to kind of factor in.
We always bring in the Chet Holmes pyramid, right? I think I've put it in so many of our videos, right? Which is basically like the intent, the buyer's intent out there. Because originally when we were working with IT consulting firms and they had only grown from referrals and network leads, and then we started helping them put content out to help support outreach methods via email and LinkedIn and whatnot. And then they were like, hey, how do we get more high intent leads? And we're like, I'm not sure if you know what percentage of the people are actually out in the marketplace looking for what you have to offer, like right now, right? And it's
Right.
5
Yep.
to 7%. It's such a small amount, right? And so, but for that 5 to 7% that are looking right now, you've got to kind of do all those things that might not matter for the other, 88 to 90%, of the prospects, right? But that's going to make a huge difference. And if you're dealing with high intent buyers, anything and everything you can do to give yourself a leg up against the competition helps, right?
Yeah. Out of that first call, we try and coach our clients to have two offers. Offer one is like, I know they're not buying and they're not going to want to move to a next step and give me more time. So like they're going into nurture
Mm-hmm.
offer. Is that a community? Is that get on your email list? Is that you do something quarterly? Like whatever that is. And then there's the active buying offer. Most of our clients know what to do with people who are actively buying. They may not have a good name for it, or they're not driving, but like that feels more natural. Our clients that are really good at nurturing, like end up just catching leads over time. Because like at least with our stuff, outbound usually doesn't have like a 50x ROI. It's not like kind of ads where you can turn them on and you have this massive addressable market. Um, you want to break even as fast as possible. And then if you're doing it right over time, you know, these SDRs are turning into account executives and you're getting a very positive ROI. But it's not just going to be by catching the 3%. You know, like you're going to have to do some nurturing.
What is it in the nurturing side that you see your best clients or the people that are best that have the most success with that, right? Because a lot of times what happens
Yeah.
too with salespeople is, right, if they don't have high intent, they're like, okay, I'm just dumping you into the CRM and put you into the auto
Yeah.
sequence, right? Like tag you as tag you as not
Yeah.
interested, right? But like it just
Exactly.
could be not interested right now, right? But so what do you
Yep.
see as some of the best practices for those that are doing a good job with having that other path to the nurture?
Yep. So the absolute minimum is getting them into your marketing list so that they're just seeing your brand no matter what. Like they have to be in your marketing list. Our best clients have communities, they do monthly roundtables, you know, like they're providing education ongoing, um, nonstop. And so when they can put them down those paths, it's just over time they wear them down and they stay in front of them. And then maybe on the lower end, maybe your marketing isn't as sophisticated or you're not doing those types of things. Like building out sequences for salespeople works really well, right? Like every month and a half, you need to have an education sequence where all you're doing is sending that person a note on LinkedIn that's like, hey, saw this article and thought of you. Like just super basic stuff, but your salespeople will always focus with the deals that are close, which is good. But you, from a management perspective, have to monitor what they're doing with nurturing as well and make sure that, you know, they're also hitting the people because like, I don't know, I was in sales forever before owning OutboundView. It's like, it's the deals that come out of nowhere that make quarters, you know, and they happen a lot when you're doing a lot of the right things.
Yeah, just building pipeline and doing the right things to nurture. Because like just that's why we talk so much about the Chet Holmes pyramid because, like I said, it's only whatever it is 5 to 7% of the people who are actually high intent buyers right now, right? But that doesn't mean that next tier down, let's call it the 15 to 20%, won't be buyers in 3 months, right, or in the
Right.
next quarter. And so, the more that you can, keep yourselves top of mind with them, keep content and branding, in front of their eyes, whether it's on YouTube channels or whether it's on LinkedIn making posts. It just all adds up, right?
Yep, for sure. Yep, 100%. And it's nobody ever really knows what are the little things. I mean, we know that roundtables and communities and those things, but those are also really tough to run. Yeah, I mean, like it's not super easy. So there are small things. Just make sure your salespeople have a nurture path and like, you know, bring it up. What's your nurture path this month? What's your nurture education? What are you going to do for the people that aren't actively buying? And like, if it's not if the leaders don't ask it for it to be reported on or you don't talk about it, just assuming your salespeople are going to do it is probably, you know, probably it's not going to happen. So it's like everything we talked about before, just be super intentional.
Yeah. Who's your ICP? Like, who are your ideal clients? And obviously, everyone, well, obviously, you mentioned earlier too about if you've got a high client lifetime value, that always helps, right? To
Yep.
but
Yeah.
who are like, are there certain industries? I know you were heavy in like HR.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. You know, typically you need a minimum of a $5,000 ACV, but the closer you can get to 10, the better. Because cold calling is people heavy, and people heavy makes the meetings more expensive, you know. So you know, you need that. Um, Complex is usually better, not always, but the more complex type of sales, you know, gives you kind of time to build those pipelines. But really, the most basic is, does your persona pick up the phone? You know, there are certain personas. If you're going after Fortune 1000 C-suite, cold calling is not a good,
yeah,
you know, is not a good channel for that. You know, if you're going after sometimes like Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 marketers, they don't pick up the phone. They're just inundated. Marketers at small companies are easy. So it just kind of depends. I mean, we have data on most personas, and how often they pick up the phone. And if they pick up the phone less than 2 to 3%, it makes it really, really difficult to make the math work out where you can have enough meetings.
Yep. What are you seeing out there in terms of, obviously with AI and the different technologies that are coming about, and you hear, doesn't matter if you go on LinkedIn or here, wherever, you can hear, talking about how they're going to replace SDRs or how that whole process is changing. And I don't even want to tie the AI part to SDRs and
Mm-hmm.
outbound sales teams, but I don't know. I just don't think you can have a conversation without talking about it.
For
But like,
sure.
what are you seeing right now? Let's approach it this way. What are you seeing out there that frustrates companies in terms of what's not working, maybe that used to work? And that could just be the
Yep.
same structure that they've been using for the last 10 to 15 years. It's like, okay, SDRs, and they kind of do the outreach and they warm it up for, either an account executive or whomever. But like, maybe talk a little bit about what you're seeing and
Yep.
hearing from the market and where you think things are going.
For sure. There's, on the AI front with SDRs, I think that's going to get bigger on the inbound SDRs for sure. Number one, it's legal, right? Like it's illegal right now to use uh, AI voice to do outbound calling. Like that's not legal. Um, what we're seeing the big changes where it used to take 10 SDRs, you can get the same amount of work done with 3 to 4 and like really good like data technology infrastructure. And so there's a big move to spend more money on data and infrastructure and AI and targeting and all those types of things versus the people cost. Like you can just get more done. And, at the same time, 2, 3 years ago, email and LinkedIn were just so much easier. So you were getting a lot of SDRs that looked pretty productive based on number of meetings set, and they were literally just sending mass emails. Like it is not, you need to be very buttoned up on email and like all over inboxes and deliverability and just things that you did not have to do a couple years ago. So, that's probably the big change. It's less SDRs. It used to be like, when I started as an SDR, it was like one SDR per account executive. I mean, we never see that. I mean, never. So there's a lot more people used to outsourcing SDRs as well. It gives them flexibility that they didn't previously have. We still believe that if you can build an SDR team internally, and you have the knowledge and expertise to do it, you're usually better off because like you get the benefits of people working in the business and moving, and it's a great entry sales role. So some things aren't that different. Phone's definitely heavier now, I think, than it was a couple years ago as well. So there's a lot of little things happening on the research side, like AI is making it so much easier to be an SDR. It's just like bring me, go visit that website and tell me how many years experience this person has and give me their email address. Like that used to take like me clicking to 10 different things.
We're
So
working on
that's
something
a
now.
big
It's pretty
difference.
close. I think next week, to where like when we get an opt-in to our sales funnel, right? It's just name, email, phone, that we have an LLM agent that automatically takes that, information, the name, email, and phone, and goes out and looks in LinkedIn, looks at the website if they've got a company. 80% of the time they're using a company email address, but even just pulling up their phone number and finding as much information as possible to give a summary report to the call
Right.
setter who's speed to lead and trying to call within 5 minutes. They're always balancing that. Hey, what's going to be more important? Do I try and catch this person right now when they opted in, or do I try and take 2 minutes to do some quick research so that I can make a connection there if and when I do get a hold of that person? But
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's wild kind of the research side, how helpful it is. Even like targeting the right companies is something all of our clients struggle with. It's like, oh, we go after financial services. You're like, well, is that a credit union? Is that a big bank? Is that an insurance? Like, what is that? And now we can visit every single one of their websites and say, hey, go to the career page and tell me how many open jobs they have. Yeah, I mean, you can just do things to help target into the right companies that's pretty significant as well.
what are some good openers for cold calling?
So the key is just be quick and get to the point. So we do permission based most of the time. Like, hey Terrence, it's Blake with OutboundView. You got 20 seconds to tell you why I called. So you're kind of asking them. There's a psychology in cold calling that, like, you pick up the phone from somebody you don't know, and they're like in their brain trying to register who is this person and what's going on, and they're not listening to the beginning of your pitch. So there are also things that we'll do, things like, hey Terrence, it's Blake with OutboundView. I called to get 20 meetings or 20 minutes on your calendar next week. How's Thursday look? And then you immediately go like, wait, who is this? And it's like, oh, sorry, this is Blake with OutboundView. Now you're listening. Here's the pitch. So there's some little openers like that. The closing is actually as important. I'm booking a meeting. Now, what do I want to do in the last 20 seconds? It's like, I got to send the meeting, see they accepted it. I want to give them an excitement statement. Look, you're going to get insert offer out of this call. Like, it's going to be worth your time. Like, keep pumping them up. And so, there's a couple kind of key components. But usually it's like, you want to do an opener that doesn't just rush in and bombard them. They give you the okay, and then you can go through your 2 to 3 sentence pitch. Like, nobody, why am I calling? Why should you care? Here's the offer. That's it.
I think stressing the offer is so huge. I don't think we can ever talk, all of us as marketers, right? Talk about it enough. The offer is so, so important. If you can go out to the market with a good offer, you can make anything work. And you can make mediocre outreach work. You can make mediocre ads work. You can make mediocre anything work with a really good offer.
Exactly. Yeah. And I said it's easy to make offer. That's easier than, buying all the data, but it's really tough to craft an offer that is going to work. And most of our clients, we launch with 2 to 3 offers for that reason. Like, it's not like we came up with this amazing offer and it hits all of the time. It usually takes a good amount of testing.
Yeah. What advice would you give to maybe a small, like most of our clients are, like I said, they're IT tech, AI consulting firms. They're typically founder led sales, although we're starting to get more that are in the high end of the SMB, right? So like most of ours are like in the 1 to 10 million, but we're starting to get some that are in the 20 to 50 million, which I'd almost consider those to be a little bit more like mid-market. And
Yeah,
they
for
typically
sure.
have people, but like, what about the smaller, firms? So like, let's just call it 1 to 5 million, who are typically founder led sales, may have a salesperson. Like, what kind of advice would you give to them for outbound?
It's spend the most time on the offer and picking the right companies to go after. So the offer, if you come up with a no-brainer offer, you don't have to be a great salesperson to get into that first intro meeting and start pitching your services. Then the second thing that we see, especially with outbound, and this goes for email or phone, a lot of times they're just picking the wrong companies to go after. So if you pitch your offer to the wrong company, it's not going to matter. Your offer has to be equivalent to where they're at, and if they care about that offer or not. And so, looking at your customer base, what what is the normal size here? Who are we going after? Who is our entry point? Like, all of these things from a research perspective will help you pick the right companies to go to. So those are offer and picking the right companies are always kind of very high on our list.
Yeah. As we're staying the offer, have you, like, you guys already have a great offer. Have you talked about internally creating other offers?
Yeah, so we have our 2 week, 2 week free trial around what we do. We have a 1 month kind of version of it, but it's kind of the same thing. It's just, it's just a little bit longer. We also do email marketing, so we'll do like mass email marketing as well, and so we have guarantee offers there. Interesting. We have an offer that's purely education, which has been working pretty well. And we do this with our clients a lot. So their offer, a lot of our clients are selling like a platform that's a 3-year contract. And it's not as easy to come up with like, here's my offer with that versus a service. but we'll offer things like, hey, we're going to give you a 30-minute educational briefing on X topic. And so the offer is we're going to educate you for 30 minutes, but that gets them into the first call, and then that, gets them there. So it doesn't always have to be, hey, we'll do this for $2,000 or we'll do this for free. Like it can be, we'll tell you a case study. It can be education, it can be lots of different things.
We spent so much time with our consulting firm clients, going through the offer, because you just touched on it, right? It's like having that entry point offer, like that, just having an entry point offer, because like we would have these consulting firm clients and they would say, yeah, our lowest initial engagement is like 150,000. And we're like, well, you're not gonna be able to sell that to a cold market, right? And they're like, well, we
Yeah,
do this
that's going to be
other
hard.
thing that's like 25,000 for 6 weeks. It's like, well, how much value would they get out of that? How much value does the market deem that they get out of that? And they're like, well, they like it. It works for this and this. I was like, all right, what if you price that at 10,000? They're like, the
Right.
first the response was like, well, we don't work for free. I'm like, hang on, we'll get to that in a second. But like, what if you priced it at 10,000? Like, oh yeah, we could sell a lot of those. Like, great. That's what we call an entry point offer, right? It's your ability to
Yeah,
get in there with a value proposition. The market goes, oh, that is substantial value for the capital risk, whatever you want to put, right? And I think
exactly.
that's why I say I don't think we can talk enough about the offer.
And they are, it's tough to get people in that mindset. Like we have a lot of training companies and they want to sell 100 to $200,000 like global training deals. And it's like, well, everyone does. And it's like, well, do a half day facilitation on a topic for 5 grand, and you're probably going to wow them. And that five's going to turn into 50, and then the 50 is going to turn into 200, but like, you're not going to cold sell somebody on a $200,000 deal without a brand, or proving to them that you're good. Or you will, but you'll do it at 3%. So like, do you really want to have 100 meetings and close 3 of them, or do you want to close 20% and like have consistent revenue coming in? So I think that math between getting to break even, what we sell our big services and our lifetime value is, it's like, well, if you have a good lifetime value, that actually means you should be selling more of the small services to get the entry point, because you guys obviously do a good job.
To me, it's just a
There's
math
some
problem.
math there.
It's just a math problem, right? Like that. It's funny because we have, like an ROI calculator that we use, both not only in our sales process, but on the onboarding, because we want to reiterate to them where we're going with it. And the two, factors that we talk about the most is your client lifetime value, because everything drives backwards from that. Then you can determine your client acquisition costs, or what you're willing to spend on sales and marketing efforts in order to get one client, because your average client lifetime value is X, right?
Yeah,
But it just
yeah.
drives everything backwards from that.
Yeah, we get into weird conversations because nobody's doing the math, and we'll have clients that'll say like, "Oh, we built $150,000 in pipeline, but nothing is closed." And it's like, well, you told us on day one you had a 6-month sales cycle. So what would make you think something would be closing here? Like what you need to see is pipeline velocity, And so you have pipeline velocity, and their business is similar to ours. Like we don't make it. We lose money on a $2,000
Right,
trial.
right,
We don't make any
right.
money doing that. But the people that it's successful with sign on and stay around for a long time. And so we're willing to be in the hole for a month or two while we're kind of, catching up, because we know they're going to be around for a while.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on today. Let me ask. We belong to the same mastermind group. Are you going out to the event in Florida in September?
Yeah, I am.
Awesome. Good. We'll talk about that offline. Good. I'm excited about that too. So, all right. Where can folks go to learn more about you, more about OutboundView? Where can they follow you?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Blake Johnston. Company name is OutboundView. And then you can go to outboundview.com. If you want to dive in, talk about 2-week trial, kind of learn anything, feel free to kind of fill out a form there.
Cool. I'll make sure and put all the links. Do you have a YouTube channel yet? I'm telling you, man, like
We do. We do. It's in like its infancy. So we've had it for a year or two, but we've actually been putting some time into it in the last year. So yeah, I'll share that link as well. You can do the same thing.
Yep.
YouTube plus
I'm going to
Outbound View, and you'll find us.
anticipate that there's going to be a lot more content over there. So we'll put that link in there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you joining me today.
All right, absolutely. Good chatting.